Welcome,
Good
Lily.
morning.
Welcome,
Good
Christine.
morning. Good afternoon.
Welcome, whoever else is watching out there. And I just, first of all, before we do anything else, I just wanted to comment on how I love the way Lily has got things set up with her candle and her leaves there. I think both of us have had fun redoing our sacred spaces for not just for this, but for everything. Don't you think, Lily?
Yes, and this is where we do our Thin Place Nashville house church. So on Zoom. So this is kind of the setup we do for that. We come from the living room to whoever's living room or wherever they have. So our Tuesday night house church is all over the place. They're all from different places in Canada and West Coast and Midwest. So it's fun. We did that last night. So this is kind of leftover from last night's Thin Place. And we prayed with Halloween candy last night.
Oh, well, and I'm in the process of setting up my circle of light, which is part of what I do over the winter time. And it was just this week, such a lovely feeling to put up all the candles in my bookcase here and to start, kind of getting everything set up. And for those of you that aren't quite aware, these are not live candles. They are remote operated battery candles, something I never thought I'd use, but they have been an absolute delight for me these last couple of years. And I think even more so as time goes by. And I think both of us, this is such a fitting start to what we're going to talk about today, which is about the beauty that God is creating in us. And I think these both give little glimpses of the beauty that God is creating in and through us.
Well, and that's one of the things that I love to do, because we don't have a fireplace in our house. And you were just talking earlier about your fireplace, using your mantle to decorate. And lots of people like to decorate their mantles, but we don't have one. So I have a table behind our couch that's kind of like my mantle. So I decorate it for different holidays or different seasons. And because of Zoom church, this has been kind of our altar spaces to decorate behind us. So even, thinking about how we create beauty in our homes as well as in our offices, and making those places of beauty, not just places of work.
Well, and Lily, you're such a wonderful artist. I mean, my eyes are gravitating to that pumpkin behind you there. And I'm thinking, oh, that's beautiful. And of course, just such a fitting kind of emblem for this time of the year here in the United States. For those that might be watching down under, it's obviously not a fitting symbol, but it's just beautiful and I love it. So I'm so glad that you have that gift that God has given.
Thanks. So. Thanks. Well, I loved your questions from Monday. So Christine wrote about share your book. The book.
Yeah, this is a book, an InterVarsity book, The Soul of Desire by Curt Thompson. He's a psychiatrist, and just a fascinating book. The subtitle says, Discovering the Neuroscience of Longing, Beauty, and Community. Don't be put off by that, because it's not a real technical book. It's an easily readable book. At least I think it is. I have found in the past that what I think is easily readable, some people don't think is easily readable. But it's so interesting. And I did want to start by reading something that absolutely grabbed my attention. One of the early chapters is on beauty. And he says, who would we become if we could see the moments we occupy as opportunities to create beauty, not least on our relational canvases? And then he goes on to say, God sees us not as problems to be solved or broken objects to be repaired, but beauty on the way to being formed. Beauty on the way to being formed. Sin then is what keeps us in a posture of resisting God's desire for creating beauty in, with, and through us. Isn't that wonderful? I used that quote in my meditation Monday yesterday, and it just keeps resonating in my mind. The whole thing that God wants to create beauty in us through us and around us. And that, I mean, because we're very aware of the brokenness of our world, I think, and to know that that's not God's desire, but that God's desire is beauty, I think is not only reassuring, but energizing in a lot
Well,
of.
and I think we do forget that, Christine. I think with all the crap that's been happening in the world in the last 2 years, that we forget that God is about beauty and order. And I was thinking, I think we talked about this maybe even last time, that all the various colors, and even in the wildflowers, even in the, how the leaves are changing or not changing depending on where you are, but just the different seasons. Even I remember Lisa Scandrat in San Francisco saying, we don't get the same kind of seasons I used to get in the Midwest and Minnesota, but there are seasons, and you do look for those changes and the beauty, and the beauty of sunrises or sunsets and those kind of things. But we have to notice and pay attention and remember that it's a gift that God gives us. And I think that's I love that is in us and with us and through us is powerful.
Yeah, isn't it powerful? Yeah, it really is. And I would recommend this book to you, though we're going to just focus on a tiny little bit of it, I think, today. And asking two questions that came up for me. The first one being, because I think it's an important foundation, is what beauty do you see, or do we see, that God has already created in, through, and around us? And we do, what we would love is if you would take a moment or two to pause and to think about that, and maybe write in the comments on the Facebook Live what comes to your mind, because God has created beauty in, through, and around us. And don't be embarrassed to admit that. I think we're often embarrassed to admit that, that God has done that and is still doing that. I know for a long time I was, because as an Australian, it's kind of like, oh, you don't want to put yourself forward, you don't want to kind of make yourself look bigger than you are. And so the tendency therefore is to pretend that these things don't happen, or they haven't happened, and it's bad.
I think it's a great thing to look back and see where have you seen beauty, and how has God created beauty for you or with you and through you, but all three of those things. And so last week, Christine knows this, last week I had the opportunity to go to Atlanta to reclaim some gear from the worship things we created, the sacred spaces called Sanctuary and Prayer Chapel that I've been creating for the last 12 years at National Youth Workers Convention. And I put that out on Facebook and on Instagram, kind of that I had done that, and things I'm thinking about in creating new spaces like that. But I got some really great, nice and beautiful comments on Facebook from people who had really been impacted with those spaces. And it was just a great gift back from those folks, but from God too, to say, oh, what you created, those beautiful spaces, because they are, for me, my way of expressing beauty and art in the world. It's not, it's creating that space where you can engage God with all your senses, but it's also a place of beauty, which we lose. And that was just a real gift of God reminding me, Jesus reminding me that, hey, this is how I've created beauty through you and with you, and for me too. That part of my creative process in creating sacred spaces, wherever they've been, has been, oh, this is me bringing beauty to the world, but I feel God's pleasure when I do that. I feel, that I'm bringing that beauty with God to other people. And I appreciate all the people that commented on that post and giving me hope for future beauty creations.
That's lovely. I mean, and it brings up something too, that not only aren't we aware of where God has already created beauty in us, but we rarely kind of commend others for the beauty, that we see that is in them, or for the beauty, the real beauty, the beauty of God within them, or the beauty that we see that they've created around them. I know how rarely people comment, on the things that we do, you know, and I'm a big culprit too. I mean, I rarely comment on the beautiful things that I see that others around me do, which is a real challenge, of course. But, you know, it's so necessary to do that. I'm sorry, there's a background noise here that I'm not sure what's causing it. I think somebody's doing some construction
Oh,
somewhere.
we don't hear. I don't hear it. So
You can't hear it. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah. It's but it's important. You know, I think it's important to tell other people when you see the beauty that they've created, or when you see the beauty emerging within them. You know, I love to see that. I love to see somebody who I know that's broken, and we're all broken, and watching God putting the pieces back together, you know. And I think of course, of the Japanese art of kintsugi. Did I get that right? Yeah, and the gold that God kind of mends us with, you know, so that the broken bits are still kind of obvious there in a way, but they're obvious with beauty. And not with the brokenness we have a tendency to kind of notice, I think.
Well, and I think we don't give ourselves credit either that, you know, that art, you commented on my art, which thank you for that, but that we don't see all the things that we do as bringing beauty to the world. Mm-hmm. Things like cooking, you know, I have a friend that I follow who's in New Zealand, and she's been in lockdown for like 60 something days. And she puts all the beautiful bakery creations that she's been baking up a storm and cooking up a storm in lockdown. And those are just like her beautiful creations that she's sending out, not just to her friends. She's now giving them away to all her friends and neighbors. That's like her mission during lockdown in New Zealand. But you know, she's sharing that beauty in Instagram land too, that we get to see. You know, I want to taste it. That's the bad thing. But it's the you know, the beauty that are so many ways we create it. For hospitality, you were talking about the gift of hospitality earlier, and creating those kind of spaces, that's bringing beauty into the world. And that's the thing I realized. I've been doing morning pages, and I realized that I missed that. We've not had anybody really around in the last year and a half, because we haven't been doing that because of stupid COVID. But I missed that hospitality gift, and it's time to resurrect it.
Yeah, that's been a very important part of our lives as well, and we really miss it. And then the other thing, you know, one of the things that it's made me aware of too is, you know, I've talked in the past about, you know, kind of being grateful for the organizations and the people that we're able to support that can do things that I feel passionate about, that we are not able to do. And I think, you know, this is another form of beauty, you know, the kind of seeds of God's presence that are being planted all over the world. Today I got a beautiful prayer that one of the GodSpace authors and person down in New Zealand who's become a dear friend, Annalisa de Jong, posted a prayer poem. I think it's more of a prayer to me than a poem, about the Afghan women. It's worth finding it on Facebook and looking at it. I'll see if I can post it into the GodSpace Light Facebook group. Because again, this is another form of beauty that speaks to a brokenness place in the world, you know, not just in our personal lives, but in our world. And I think of the friends I have working in Haiti, you know, working for years and years in a very, what seems like a thankless place. And yet they're planting little seeds of beauty. People working with the homeless, and, you know, kind of all kinds of different things that I think are so important in so many different ways, and that we don't always see as beauty, you know.
Right. Well, I was thinking that would be a great practice to adopt for November. I can't believe that next week is November. I'm still back in August. But the you know, if we said, you know, we've been talking about practicing gratitude and gratefulness, but if one of those grateful practices was touching base with people like that, the people who have been doing, that have meant something to you, bringing beauty into the world through service or missions, but then also the people who've brought beauty to your life through other things too, like my friend Tosh in New Zealand, or my friend Archie, who is a part of our soul care team at National Youth Workers, or all that whole team. You know, that was one of the things that I really valued in looking through the gear that we used in the last 12 years, is that each person who brought beauty to my life from the soul care team from National Youth Workers Convention, and just being grateful for them and thanking them. But really, you know, I'm thinking about how can I physically, you know, either text message or even a phone call, because we're used to having that bookend in November as a team with that conference, and it's not happening this year, and we don't know, you know, what the future of that conference is going to be, so we're not sure when we'll see each other again. Yes. So but those kind of things of honoring friends, and even people we don't necessarily know in person, but know because of their writing or because of their, Rob did an email to an author, professor yesterday, just thanking him for his work and how much it's meant to him and the stuff that he's doing. And that's a thing that we can do for one another and for people that don't even know it. Because like you said, you don't get a lot of feedback in ministry too, or, you know, service organization, anything. We just all need feedback. And I think that's an honor, and that's what Jesus does and God does. And we just need to pay attention to it. But we can personally be those hands and feet and emails or phone calls to people to say, hey, I see this beauty that you're creating in the world, and it's meant something to me. So thanks.
Well, and don't you think it helps to bring some of the healing that God intends for us personally, but also for the world, you know?
Very much.
And I think sometimes, you know, we undervalue the beauty that God is creating because we don't acknowledge it in the lives of others, you know? And of course, you know, one of the things that I'm more and more convinced of is that there is a false beauty that the social media, that the, you know, consumer culture says matters, and we think that unless it's perfect, it's not beautiful. And it's so sad, so tragic to me that that is the case, because I think that you know, I mean, you think of kids, you know, who, you know, excitedly bring you these amazing paintings that they've done, or sketches or whatever. You know, they're not perfect in any way, shape or form, but they're excited because they look at them and they see beauty, and then they want you to acknowledge the beauty that they see in them as well. Yeah, which is a lovely example, I think, of you know, kind of what beauty is all about in a way.
Well, it's reclaiming our artist self too. I was thinking when you said about the person or the kid bringing you the artwork, is that everybody's an artist until they're like in second grade or 8 years old. And then so everybody believes in their creative self and their beauty and all, until you get to like second grade, 8 or 9 years old, and somebody looks over to, you know, their paper and go, well, yours isn't as good as mine, or somebody says some kind of comparison thing, and that's when you go, oh, I'm not an artist anymore. When we got to go back and go, no, because of the creator, we're all creative and we all have that artist in us. It may come out in different ways. It may not be painting. It may come out in, like I said, baking bread or hosting an event, or even just gathering, you know, writing a beautiful letter or poem or prayer, like you were talking about. That's all the gifts of beauty and artistry that, like you said, I don't think our culture claims, or that we need to reclaim. And as a part of, I just believe that's what God is about, is bringing beauty into the world. And that's a thing that our culture really, really needs in this, you know, we're not through with COVID, sadly, but in this post-traumatic, or we're in that tension of everything, is that having that, you know, how do we get that beauty into the world, and how do we honor each other in saying thanks to the beauty that they've brought to our lives.
Well, and one thing that just occurs to me is the beauty of people who do ordinary, everyday kinds of things. You know, the people that, for example, you know, the cashiers at the grocery stores, you know, the beauty of them doing that day after day after day with smiles on their faces usually. You know, and I know that at our local Safeways, that some of the cashiers there have been there as long as Tom and I have been married, you know, and they have smiles on their faces. And the people at Costco's that sign, you know, kind of sign you out, as it were. It's the same people that I've remembered for years and years. And, you know, I like to say hello, and I love that fact that it's the same people and they've got smiles on their faces. Can't see them these days, but they've still got smiles on their faces.
But that's
and
the
how
simple
often do we
beauty. I love that. Simple beauty. That's beautiful. That's great.
How often do we think to thank them? You know, I mean, I'm thinking that myself, think, boy, when was the last time I said thank you and how much I've appreciated the little bit of beauty you've brought to my life through the time of COVID, because you are still here, you know, because you've persevered, because you've been willing to take on a risk that you never signed on for.
Right. Very much. Very much.
And that's, I mean, it hadn't occurred to me before, but that's another form of beauty. And I think that maybe part of the beauty that God is asking us to create at this time is the beauty of extending thanks to people like that, because there's a beauty in saying thanks as well.
Very much.
Yeah, boy, I'm inspiring myself as I say this. I think, oh, this is something I've got to do.
Well, and with, you know, thinking and asking, I think asking God I think those questions that you had at the beginning were really good questions of how, you know, what is the next beautiful thing God wants to create in me, but also what are the beautiful things that God's already created in me, and taking the time to really ponder those things and make the you had in your meditation Monday, you had, you know, take some time to ponder and make a list even of what are the things, how have you seen God's beauty in your life, in you, in yourself personally. I was thinking about the gift of silence that God gave me like 20 years, 15 years ago, that if I hadn't had that gift, I probably would be crazy somewhere. I wouldn't be still doing ministry. Let's just say that. That was a real beauty gift that I didn't value. No one taught me that when I was a kid. You know, I didn't grow up with any practice of silence or any value of silence. We were a really loud family, so that was not something we valued, and how much I value that now, and that piece of beauty that I can keep putting into my life in different ways. But I was thinking that taking the time to ponder and make a list of the things, how have I seen God's beauty? And like you said, all different kinds of beauty, not just, you know, sunset beauty or art beauty or
yeah, and that's part of what I was doing this last week. And it really was and continues to be, obviously, because this is a whole new area of beauty that I've thought about this morning, you know, in terms of saying thank you to the ordinary everyday people in our lives. It can be quite an amazing kind of an exercise. I hate to use the word exercise, but a practice to use. It's more than an exercise. It's though it is a stretching of kind of muscles in a way that we didn't know we had or we didn't know we needed.
Well, it could be baby steps. I think it's baby steps. I think that's all the things that we talk about as practices. We don't have to be, you know, I've been doing some of them for 20 years, but doesn't mean I can't learn something. But there's also lots of things that I have never done, or that I'm still a rookie. You know, I'm still a rookie when it comes to silence and Sabbath. I'm still learning, and that we all can just do baby step practices of one, you know, taking time to notice something today outside your window that is beautiful, even if you live in the city, or taking time to go outside. And I told you, I think last week or a couple of times ago when at Facebook Live, that we have my neighbor next door, we have this text messaging thing about the sunset. So we have sunset alert. So I got a sunset alert this week, and I wasn't outside. I was watching a movie or something, and I was like, thanks. So I walked out on my porch to look at the sunset. So that's a very simple thing, but it's a fun thing for our neighborhood to do.
It's lovely. Yeah, it really is lovely, I think, to do things like that. And if one can bring in the neighborhood, you know, I mean, I know I should just mention, because we're getting close, that the next Facebook Live, because Lily's not going to be able to be a part of it, I'm going to do it together with my husband, Tom Syme, and we're going to talk about community, why we live in community, what it looks like for us, and why we recommend it, you know, why it's been a way of life for us. but I was just thinking, the different forms of community and the beauty of them. And one of the ones that I've discovered, particularly over the last couple of years, that has brought beauty into my life I never expected, is the Buy Nothing group in our neighborhood. Buy Nothing group is basically, it's a Facebook group where you can only belong if you live in a certain kind of circle number of blocks in the neighborhood. And basically, if you have something you want to get rid of, you post it to see if somebody would like it. And it amazes me the things that people give away. And I know we've given away some things, often spurred by the fact that others have given away quite valuable things. We've given away things, and to see the delight that people express. Sometimes it's small things, but sometimes it's big things. And that has been a form of beauty. It's kind of, for me, it's unveiled part of the beauty of our neighborhood that I would never otherwise have expected to discover. And I've just loved that. And, so we find beauty in unexpected places and in unexpected ways if we open our minds to that possibility, what else is there for us to discover? And what does God still want to create in us and around us and through us that is beautiful, that is brokenness coming together in beauty?
I love the mosaic picture. I love that mosaic, because the mosaic is all about broken pieces that come together in a beautiful whole. And I was even thinking this morning, about doing, a collage of some kind of broken paper. I don't have any tile right now, but just to think about how God is bringing brokenness together in a beautiful way. And even the fact that we can do this on there's so many resources now because of Zoom and Facebook Live and Instagram Live that we are able to bring people from all over the place together and to create these beautiful spaces. And that's just a gift that we didn't have, 5 years ago. That's new. Maybe not even 3 years ago. At least we didn't use it the way we can use it now to bring beauty into the world. And so I want to advertise for our next retreat, which is in November 20th, and bringing wonder and beauty into the world for the Advent Christmas season. So we're getting a jump on it. Celtic Advent starts in November. So Christine and I are both.
Is Celtic Advent starting?
And so both of us have learned about celebrating Advent early because the Celtic Christians do that 40 days before Christmas, like 40 days of Lent before Easter. And so this way you get a kickstart before Thanksgiving in America and before all the craziness of the holidays start in December, which somehow they're still advertising already, which is scary now. But to bring yourself to a place where you can experience beauty for yourself in a space on a Saturday to breathe and to create something and to experience what about wonder makes you, excited and you don't have to do it on the day either. You get to do the recording. You can sign up and then do the
recording. Yeah. Well, and I'm, already thinking about it, and I am so excited about, the ways that I'm rediscovering the wonder of the Advent story. I said to Tom the other day, I said, it's just hit me like a bomb. I said, the Advent story doesn't really start with the conception of Jesus. The Advent story really starts with the creation of the world and the Word, in the beginning was the Word. And then the Word became flesh. It's like, wow, the wonder of that, the wonder of the fact that it is written into the very fabric of the creation of our world. To me, that's where this wonder starts. And I've never thought about that before.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a good, beautiful thing.
Well, it's excited. I can get excited, as you know, about some of these things, but it is the wonder of the story is it's like, oh Lord, why do we think so little and take so little time to enter into the wonder of the story? And so that's why, I feel I said in our email, the God Space email that went out yesterday, that I feel that this is probably the most important retreat that we've done, Lily, because I think that what it kind of says is just phenomenal.
Well, and as you know, I love beginnings. Beginnings are, new months, new years, and Advent is the beginning of the church year, which a lot of people don't know that if they don't follow the church year. But it's the brand new church year, and starting with Advent, and that means you get to fresh start even before the first of the year. And a new gospel, that means a new gospel reading if you're liturgical. So we're starting the Gospel of Luke, which I think is my favorite.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
I love John, but Luke is really is my favorite gospel. So I'm excited about that. And to know that you can, in the middle of all this craziness, that we can experience beauty, and we can bring beauty ourselves, and to receive beauty from God is I think our heart for each of you this year, as the year ends out and re-begins with Advent and Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, we need wonder and beauty this year, I feel, in a way that we've kind of never, we've always needed it, but we're aware of the fact, I think, that we need it to a new depth. So yeah, so lots to look forward to. Next Facebook Live with Tom and myself. I'm excited to talk about community. I always learn something new when we do that. And then November 20th, Lily and I, because we won't have another Facebook Live together before that, will we?
Right. No, not till Christmas. Not December, not Christmas. Yeah. Well, and I want to thank you and Tom because I won't be on that live next time because I have something I have to do. But if you guys don't know, Christine and Tom have been practicing sustainability and community for much longer than it's been cool in our culture. And they were cool before, and doing all those things before it was cool in culture.
That's the trouble with being futurists. We're always out the front there,
Pioneers, yes. You guys have pioneered many, many great things that we all need to learn about now and take with us into the future. And I thank you. That's one of the ways you guys have brought beauty into the world for me and for lots and lots of people. And more people need to know about it. So I'm glad you're going to talk about community and that beauty next time we do Facebook Live.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I do. So anyway, I think we're at an end here, but we've had the least glitches here. I think we've finally got it nailed.
Hey, that's good. Well, yeah. And I just want everybody to really take some time today and write down what are some of the beautiful things that God has already created in you? And then what is the next thing that beautiful thing God wants to create in and through you? And go back and look at Christine's Meditation Monday from this week on God's Space Light. And that's even more detailed about those questions. But to give yourself that gift of beauty today or later this week and receive that gift of beauty for yourself.
Well, and please do share them with us, share them in comments and such so that we understand, because I think it's energizing for all of us to see the beautiful things that God is creating in those around us as well, or through those around us as well. So thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you
for being a part of it, and many blessings on everybody.
Yeah, you guys have a great week.